it's our pleasure to be joined by the general manager of the Phoenix Suns, James Jones, for two segments here on Newsmakers Week, as James joins us on the 72 Sold Sports Line. Good morning, James. How are you?
Good morning, guys. Thanks for having me. I'm doing well.
Thanks for being here. We appreciate it. Coming off of All-Star Weekend, obviously Sunday especially had a big Phoenix Suns feel to it. What was your feeling watching the proceedings there in Cleveland, and how proud were you seeing the Suns' influence in Cleveland?
I mean, well, we were there. Like I said, we were rolling deep in Cleveland. Having the coaching staff, Devin and Chris for sure, having a chance to see them on the big stage with the game's best players in the building with, the historically the game's greatest players, the top 75. I thought that was really cool for them. And then as a Suns fan personally, it was great. It gave me a reason to watch every moment of All-Star Weekend.
James, the news that Chris's timeline was going to be 6 to 8 weeks before he's reevaluated hit a lot of Suns fans very, very hard. What is the plan going forward? How optimistic are you that he will be back in time for the playoffs?
The timeline 6 to 8 weeks, we all know Chris pushes the limits. I mean, if he were to come back earlier, I wouldn't be surprised. But we expect to have him down the stretch. This team is built for these types of moments. We came into the offseason saying that we needed a deep team. If we were going to make a real run, we're going to have to be able to go 9-10 months straight. And to do that, you need depth at every position, and you need players that are willing to step up to the challenge. So it'll be a great challenge for us, and we'll miss him sorely, dearly. But I'm confident in our staff and our players that we'll figure it out.
Suns GM James Jones, our guest here on Newsmakers Week 2022. Cameron Payne's been out for quite some time. Obviously, he had experience filling in for Chris during the playoffs last year, won the first 2 games of the Western Conference Finals with him as a starting point guard. Is there an updated timetable on his return? And if he's not ready to go right away, James, do you see increased roles for Elfrid Payton and Aaron Holiday, or do you rely more on Devin Booker to kind of run point? Or all of those things, options?
The personnel decisions, I'll leave up to Monty.
Mm-hmm.
And he's been great with that. He and his coaches, they know the game plans. They know what's best for us moving forward. But I'm confident in all of our guys, Elfrid, Aaron, Cam, Devin. All those guys are our playmakers and ball handlers, so I expect we'd see a combination of those guys. And Cameron Payne specifically, he showed last year when we gave him opportunities to step up and take a lead role that he was ready for it and that he was capable of doing it. So I know he'll relish the opportunity. It'll be, maybe a week or so. Hopefully, we'll have him back. But he's truly day-to-day right now, and we're just hoping he can get back sooner rather than later.
All right, when you look at Chris's mindset, was this a difficult thing for him to process at first? Because, he's been injured before. He's had bad breaks happen to him before. But this season is kind of like his Mona Lisa, champ. He has been at a different level all year long, so I'm sure it wasn't the easiest. What was his mindset after the injury?
Well, Chris plays every game and every minute hard and, at full throttle with pure passion and intensity. So, if you play at this level, injuries will come. You hope that they aren't extended injuries, but they come. And so he's been through this long enough to know that this isn't a season-ending injury, and it's to his hand. So the rest of his body, his mind, he'll be able to continue to condition himself. It'll just be timing. And we know, I think, if there's anyone in this league that's the master of timing, it's Chris Paul.
James Jones, the Suns general manager, our guest here on Newsmakers Week. We were joking around about it. It was only 2 minutes and 19 seconds of all-star action for Chris, but we were holding our breath watching that. What was your anxiety level watching that go down, James?
I mean, I tell people I trust Chris, man. I don't have much anxiety watching that guy. If anything, it's a relief to see him with the ball and in control. So on All-Star Weekend, I knew he would want to be a part of that. You can't take that for granted. Like that's very difficult to do, especially to do it as long as he's done it. To be an all-star in this circumstance, with these circumstances coming out of COVID and everything that comes with it, I was just happy to see him get his moment because so much of what Chris does goes unnoticed. I think he's the master of non-events where people don't see the things that he does. And so for him to be recognized on the big stage, I thought it was great.
How do you keep your bigs functioning at the level they've been functioning, which is extremely high, and a lot of that has to do with playing off of Chris, particularly in the pick and roll? How do you keep them engaged and functioning at that level without CP3?
Oh, they just do what they do. If they do what they do, the ball will find them. I think we've shown that. Chris is great at forcing the issue with them, being kind of proactive and leading them and getting them to spots, leading them with passes. The rest of our guys have picked up on that, but Devin's improved with it. I think you've seen the connection with Cam Johnson and our big guys, with Mikal and our bigs. Like, all of our guys are starting to build that chemistry. So for our bigs, they just need to continue to get into position, continue to roll, put pressure on the rim, and the ball will find them.
We're talking with James Jones, general manager of the Phoenix Suns, here on Bickley and Marotta Mornings. You mentioned Devin Booker, and a lot of eyeballs will be on him in Chris's absence, but I just marvel at Devin's path, James, that 7 years in the league now. He's improved every single year, yet I don't think he's at his ceiling. What have your impressions been of Devin Booker in year 7 as a budding star in this league?
Well, it's just pure basketball for Devin. I think the narratives outside and what people expect, and the pressures and expectations that they place on him, a lot of times they're just unrealistic. But if you're a basketball player, if you're just about pure basketball, you expect to improve, and that's been Devin's approach. If you look at his game, he's continued to refine that. If you've looked at his body physically, he's continued to refine his habits, his diet. He's just getting stronger and better. And because that's 7 years into the league, and he's not even 26, 27 yet. So it takes time for guys to figure it out, but he seems like the type of guy that figured it out pretty early.
What do you think about this? Because I think the vibe when you were playing was a little bit different, but now you have guys committing so wholly off the court to the sport of basketball, whether that is with hiring their own chefs, their massage therapists, you name it. It's a different game in that regard than I'm quite certain even when you were playing.
Well, yeah, there's just a different level of professionalism. We played more basketball. These guys train more. And in order to train 365, you have to have a team with you. And that's just, the nature of today's athlete, because they need an advantage. The players are getting so much better, so much faster. At 13, 14, they look like they're 21 years old. So you need an edge and an advantage. And so if you can take care of those things on the back end and invest in them, I think the greats, guys like Chris, guys like LeBron, guys like Steph, they've demonstrated that you need to invest in yourself. And these young guys are taking the lead.
James, we went into this season, there was a lot of consternation, I guess would be the word I would use, about DeAndre Ayton's contract status. Many people felt he had earned the long-term max extension. You guys didn't go down that road, and I think DeAndre has handled himself very maturely in the aftermath of that decision. What would you say about DeAndre Ayton's performance this year, knowing that he didn't get maybe what he sought out in the offseason?
I mean, DeAndre just continues to play. That's, like we talked before, we didn't come to an agreement in the summer, but there are other opportunities to do that. And he's come into this year. He's been in phenomenal shape. He's added to his offensive game. He's been really efficient in the paint, continues to grow his offensive game. We know that he's been good defensively. That's always been the easiest part of the game for him, but he's expanded. He's played well, and it's reflected in the times when he is with us and we've been whole. We can go to another level. So we're excited for what the next 24 games hold and what the summer brings.
And even with that disappointment, D, I think, chose not to bring it to the group, and that leads me to what I want to ask you about here. The chemistry on this basketball team, it's been getting rave reviews for a long time, as it should be. There's magic in basketball, as you know, for selfless teams that share the basketball. This one is about as tight and as close as I've ever seen. How do you keep that from splintering? How do you keep the disease of me, as Pat Riley likes to call it, from entering the conversation?
Well, I heard Pat use that phrase a lot. And the only thing that keeps it together is that orange basketball. Ultimately, we have a team filled with guys that love to compete, that love to hoop. And if you make it about basketball, it doesn't become about money and contracts and playing time. It's about winning games. It's about coming out on top. versus your opponent. And so if you look at our guys, we've assembled a team to the core. All of these guys just want to play, and they want to play well, and they want to win. And if you keep the focus on winning, the other things will come. They don't always come when everyone wants them at the same time, but eventually, over time, if you do what you're supposed to do and you consistently do it, you'll be rewarded. And if it's not financial, more than anything, it's usually victories and winning, and it helps you build a championship culture, and it also helps you build a championship reputation, and that's what players can take with them in the game, while they're playing, and then more importantly when they're done playing.
Suns GM James Jones, our guest here on Newsmakers Week, brought to you by JSX Air. Speaking of chemistry, obviously 3 championship rings in your collection as a player. How would you compare the chemistry on this year's Suns team to some of those championship teams, and how much do you rely on your experience with great chemistry as a player in putting together rosters as a general manager?
I mean, well, they're totally different. This team, the game is different. The level of distraction is different. The commentary is different. But what's unique about this team is we have multiple eras. You have Chris Paul, who's kind of on the edge of that. He's played with some of his coaches and coaches in the league. And then on the other end of the scale, you have guys like DeAndre, who, is just starting out. So the championship teams I played on, we were all contemporaries. We were all 32, 33, 35. This team, we have a 36-year-old and a 23-year-old. So it's different. But it's all the same, though. Like both teams had great guys who, off the court, were phenomenal human beings. And then on the court, they were tenacious and extremely competitive. And so in that regard, I think they're similar.
The business-like approach of this team has been remarkable up to this point, even with the announcement of an NBA investigation. I was told that a post-All-Star break is when this thing is supposed to come to an end, and I guess we're going to find out whatever the NBA decides or thinks they want to do going forward. Do you have any update? Are you hearing anything as it results to that investigation, champ?
No, I mean, it's going. I mean, the NBA, their timelines are their timelines, but, we've been just business as usual. All that stuff will take care of itself, but we're in good shape, and hopefully we'll wrap up soon, because we know these are important issues. But more importantly, we're getting to that part of the year where we want it strictly about basketball, and I think we'll be there soon.
Talking with James Jones, Suns general manager, here on 98.7 FM Arizona Sports Station, as we kick off Newsmakers Week. At the deadline, you made a couple of maneuvers that have already paid dividends. You bring back Torrey Craig, you bring in Aaron Holiday. On the flip side of it, Jalen Smith, a second-year player who was a draft pick of yours, gets shipped off. First, I guess 2 parts on this, James. If you could elaborate more on getting Torrey Craig back and what he means to this organization. And then on the flip side, how difficult was it to trade a young player who was showing progress like Jalen Smith was?
Well, Torrey, we've always loved Torrey. I think Torrey fits. Like, Torrey embodies everything that we're about. He's tough. He can play. He's selfless. He's a team-first guy. He loves to compete, and he performs in big moments. We just couldn't get something done in the summer. He had a great opportunity in Indiana. But fortunately enough for us, he got what he wanted, was the contract, and we were able to get him back here. And he just brings a different element to us, a tremendous rebounder, and he's fearless. I tell people he's like the adult on the team. We have a bunch of young wings. He's the old wing. Yeah. He's still a young guy. And then Jalen, it's just unfortunate he didn't get an opportunity here, and not his fault. He's more than talented enough to play. It's just he was stuck behind some really good players, and he's on a really good team. It's very hard for young guys to get the reps they need to build the confidence in themselves and their teammates. So I thought he did the most with his opportunities, and I just hope that he can continue to take that progress forward in Indiana, because he's a great kid. That's why we wanted him. He's everything that we expected him to be. And we just hope he can continue to improve.
Do you expect a better version of Landry Shamet going forward, and what do you think maybe explains sort of his uneven season so far?
I mean, well, just Landry's been uneven. He's been injured. He's been playing inconsistent minutes. He had a good stretch when Devin was out for 7 games where he got consistent rotation minutes and consistent looks. Then he had moments where, Cam Payne was out, so he was playing with different lineups and different groups. I mean, I'm confident. What he does, he does. Like, he'll always be able to shoot the ball. He'll always be able to make the right plays. And when he's healthy and when he's playing with a good group of guys, you can see his impact. So I expect it to level out. And the adjustment for him, and I say this, like, you can even look at our roster in the past. It was a Javon Carter situation. The adjustment for a player playing behind Devin Booker is extremely difficult.
Yeah.
You know, Devin's a guy that can play 32 minutes or he can play 46. And you just have to be ready and capable of being effective every night. That's very, very difficult. But I think Landry is starting to figure it out, and he'll turn the corner soon.
In terms of, we can go back to Chris's injury, to be without him for 6 to 8 weeks. I know a lot of the reaction among fans is, oh, the buyout market, the Suns are a destination now. Are you confident that this roster is a finished product, or would you explore possibilities if a buyout situation were to occur, James?
I'm always, I get this question a lot. There's never a moment in time when I'm not thinking about how can I improve the team. The reality is, when you have a team as good as ours, it's very difficult to get players to accept competing and potentially not playing behind guys. And so it's that delicate balance. Of course, we'll always look to try to help to improve the team, but I'm confident what we have is enough.
When you take a look at the Goran Dragic situation, signing with Brooklyn, was he even on your radar at some point in time, or does that kind of dovetail to what you just said, that you really like the makeup of what you've put together up to this point?
I like the makeup of what we have. And just about, I mean, just for the record, every free agent that's out there, we typically have some conversations with. You have to explore it. But when you're talking about free agents, you're asking players to choose. Like, players choose where they go. So a lot of these conversations are fleeting. They're quick. But once again, we're always looking to improve our team, so we explore a lot of things.
James Jones, the general manager of the Suns, kind enough to join us for 2 segments during Newsmakers Week here today. 24 games left. You guys have obviously done a lot of winning and have a 6.5 game lead in the West at the break. Other than getting healthy, I mean, are there goals that you want to see accomplished in this last 24 games?
Well, I mean, I think we've had a lot of opportunities to expand our offense. I think Coach will continue to do that. You know, when you get to the playoffs, you have to have something to go to. Teams know your best moves. You have to have a counter. But we need to get healthy, and we need to continue to defend. I think that's what set us apart this year. I always believe you can get better on the defensive end, and so I know that will be our focus, and it'll have to be important for us because without Chris, that puts a lot of stress on our offense. So we need our defense to come through in a big way.
All right, my last question, James. When you look at this upcoming postseason run, I think the pressure is going to be a little bit different given how good you've been up to this point in the NBA season. Does that matter? What does that pressure feel like to an NBA player, and how do you get over the top of it?
It's only pressure if you're not prepared to play well. And I think our team is extremely well coached. I think our players are extremely well conditioned, mentally and physically. And once again, they love to hoop. So I believe that, you know, when we get to those moments, what they call clutch moments, you just see our guys comfortable because that's what they live for. They live for stress. They live for big moments. And they know the only way to win a title is you have to go big. And if you go big, sometimes you fail. But I'm confident with this group that we can do it.
James, thanks again so much for joining us for 2 segments. Really appreciated the conversation today.
All right, thank you, guys.
Thank you. Suns general manager and reigning NBA Executive of the Year, James Jones.